Dear brothers and sisters, we are very happy to meet you in this Bible study. Praise to God in Jesus Christ's name for this wonderful occasion. Today also we are ready to discuss a topic from the Bible scriptures, especially from New Covenant scriptures. Means the topic name is one man pastor system. The topic name is one man pastor system. The organization of the church of the Bible is a divine arrangement. No man can improve upon God's system. The slightest human variation in God's organizational blueprint mars its perfection. Such tampering is a manifestation of man's contempt for God's way and his determination to have his own way. God's pattern for the organization of the church is set forth in childlike simplicity. There is no justification for misunderstanding. There is only one head of the church, and that is Jesus Christ. Please read the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, 20-23. There is only one head of the church, and that is Jesus Christ. There is no justification for misunderstanding. The idea of exalting some weak, fallible man as the head or spiritual leader of the Lord's church is obscene. Only the most misguided and arrogant of man would dare usurp such a position. On the local level, God has ordained that each local congregation be overseen by qualified men, with deacons, preachers, teachers, and members working and worshipping under their oversight. There are three Greek terms used to describe these men, and these terms are translated by 6 English words. The term episcopus is translated bishops and overseers. The term presbyteros is translated presbyter and elder. The term poimen is translated pastor and shepherd. Once again, I repeat it. There are 3 Greek terms used to describe this man, and these terms are translated by 6 English words. The term episcopus is translated bishops and overseers. The term presbyteros is translated presbyter and elder. The term poimen is translated pastor and shepherd. These words are not religious titles, but simply terms God chose to describe the nature and work of this man. All of these terms apply to the same man and are used interchangeably in the Bible. For instance, in Acts 20th chapter verse 17, Acts chapter 20 verse 17, Paul called for the elders of the church at Ephesus. Paul called for the elders of the church at Ephesus, but then referred to them as overseers in verse 28. In writing to Titus, Paul referred to these men as elders in verse 5, but bishops in verse 7. Please be noted all these scriptures. Please be carefully read it. Elders, overseers, then bishops. Please be minded. Certain qualifications must be met before man can function as elders or bishops or pastors over the local church. These qualifications are set forth in 1 Timothy 3 and Titus chapter 1. From 1 Timothy chapter 3 and Titus chapter 1, we can see the qualifications of these men. These traits are not optional. Modifying God's way to coincide with some denominational peculiarity will be accounted for at the judgment bar of God. Only a plurality of man can function as overseers or pastors of the local church. Only a plurality of man can function as a overseers or pastors of the local church. Acts chapter 14:23 speaks of elders of the church at Ephesus. Acts chapter 14 verse 23 and Acts chapter 20th chapter verse 17, Paul spoke of the bishops of the church at Philippi. Philippians, the Epistle of Philippians chapter 1 verse 1. Paul spoke of the bishops of the church at Philippi. Timothy was to aid in the appointing of elders. Timothy was to aid in the appointing of elders. Please be minded the plurality, elders in every city. Titus chapter 1 verse 5. Denominationalism is permitted with the one-man pastor system. The New Testament portrayal of human leadership in the church from start to finish is never of the elder, the bishop, or the pastor. Rather, a plurality is always shown in the text. Once again, please be minded, denominationalism is permitted with a one-man pastor system. But the New Testament portrayal of human leadership in the church from start to finish is never of the elder, the bishop, or the pastor. Rather, a plurality is always shown in the text. The one-man pastor arrangement is purely human in its origin. The one-man pastor arrangement is purely human in its origin. It is man's system, not God's. Man has repudiated God's system and installed his own. One of the best descriptions of man's general altitude is set forth in Judges chapter 2 verse 19. One of the best descriptions of man's general attitude is set forth in Judges chapter 2 verse 19. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. The one-man pastor system is just one of many examples of man's rejection of God's way and his stubborn insistence on his own way. The one-man pastor system is just one of many examples of man's rejection of God's way and his stubborn insistence on his own way. Dear brothers and sisters, in this day, we have seen a topic of one-man pastor system from the man-made arrangement, not by God. Not by God. This is not God's arrangement. This is man-made arrangement. In this topic, we have seen some scriptures also. Please be discussed with yourselves and other brothers and sisters in what kind of arrangement in our congregation. In our worship system, what kind of arrangement was going on? If anything different from the Bible scriptures, please be turned back. Please be turned to old path. From the New Testament, from the New Covenant scriptures, we can see, we can understand the willingness of God. We are in the condition to fulfill the willingness of God, not our own mind, not our wishes. Please turn to New Covenant scriptures. New Covenant worship arrangement. This is only the God's arrangement. He revealed his willingness through the Lord Jesus Christ and preached through the apostles and binded it with the Holy Spirit. So please, if anything doubt in your mind, please ask with a free of mind, and we are sending details, and we entered this topic in description box also. Please take the notes and share with other brothers and sisters. Thanks a lot for your kindly attention. Praise to God in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.